Welcome to Women We Should Know with international speaker, mindset reset mentor, author, and your host, Leslie Michaels. With audacious honesty and candor, the Women We Should Know podcast presents the wisdom and life-empowering insights of women who are the embodiments of innovation and social evolution. Please join Leslie as she shares potent conversations that will inspire your personal and professional evolutions. Welcome to Women We Should Know. Welcome back to Women We Should Know, the podcast where we consistently bring you the voices, the innovation, the audacity, and the courage of women who are coloring outside of the lines, refusing to get into boxes that were created by other people, carving new pathways. And what is amazing is the way that every single woman who comes on this podcast, as they carve new pathways, they are leaving the light on. They are lighting a torch so that we will have a path to follow and to be able to create our new greatest reality, our greatest lives. It is always an honor to speak with these women because every single woman who visits us here at Women We Should Know has a similar focus. They are all working to uplift all of womankind, to help all women recognize their own power and their own greatness and their own genius, and each doing it in their unique way so that we can all rise to our greatest potential, and collectively, the more than 50% of the population, we can generate our equity, we can claim our space without great costs that have come before. Today we have Beverly Price, and she understands about these great costs. That's why I brought that up. We're going to talk about that. She is currently the host and founder of Her Self-Expression podcast. She's a transformational coach and provides knowledge, support, and insight to help women on their journey to self-empowerment so that they can confidently take on the world. Beverly is on a mission to help 100,000 women to live the powerful and fabulous lives they are made for. She inspires women to learn how they can use self-expression on the inside and outside to develop self-empowerment so they can ultimately become the women they long to be. We all have those women inside of us that we want to be, don't we? Beverly is on the path to help as many as she can discover that woman. Each episode of her podcast brings her listeners industry-leading guests, growth strategies, and actionable takeaways that will help her audience on their self-empowerment journey. With an MBA and a background as a leader in the financial services industry, Beverly comes from a background of making herself small in order to help others feel safe. Now, there are a lot of us who know what that feels like, right? While in the corporate world, she didn't even accessorize her attire, but instead focused on fitting into a man's world, which probably explains why, in addition to being a transformational coach, she also now designs jewelry, getting to express all of that creativity. When Beverly finally embraced her ability to own her power and make a statement, she went from self-doubt to self-love. And there's a whole lot more to this woman, but I'm going to wait and let her share with you. I want you to meet her personally and be impacted by her directly. Hi, Beverly.
Hi, Leslie. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I am thrilled to have you. I've been looking forward to this for days.
Me too.
Yes. I have this little tradition I like to start with. What has inspired you today?
Wow. What has inspired me today is looking outside and seeing the creation of things in the world that were done by a power bigger than me, that right sizes me to see that I need to go through life helping other women be the best women they can be.
That's beautiful. I like to start with that because I always, now my listeners, I don't think I've ever told them this before, but I always tape my podcasts in the morning.
Oh, okay.
And it's important for us to remember that there is inspiration everywhere, even if we've only been out of bed for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look to that, that is a way to really set the pattern in our neurology to move through the day, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I love that you love nature. I am fond of it, and this is my favorite time of year, but we won't get into that conversation or we'll be here all day. What I want to hear is, what was your first spark of inspiration that caused you to dream Her Expression podcast and to dream Her Expression as a company and as an initiative for helping women?
Well, there were so many nudges along the way, along my journey, and I think you mentioned some of them. I came through and grew up professionally in an environment that internally I felt less than. I felt I didn't have worth. I felt like I was a fraud. Most people would say I was a super confident professional executive on the outside,
Mm-hmm.
but inside was something really different.
Mm-hmm.
And what I had to do was go on a personal journey to find myself and to connect with the strength inside.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did, I decided to leave corporate America and form my own business, which you mentioned was a jewelry design business.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all about letting women express themselves so they would feel more beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted something more than to just create a piece of jewelry. I wanted it to make them feel empowered by expressing themselves. And so her self expression became an extension of that. And I thought, self expression is more than jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
Self empowerment is more than just feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want for all women is to take the journey that I have and come out the other side
Mm-hmm.
feeling confident, feeling like you love yourself, feeling like you can do whatever you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and really impact the world by doing that, making it a better place.
That's beautiful. I'm going to pick out one word you said: fraud.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling like a fraud. 80% more women than men, which is not to say 80% of all women, although it wouldn't surprise me if it were, but 80% more women than men experience imposter syndrome on a regular basis.
Yes, that is a sad fact.
It is a sad fact. And yet, once we know that and identify it, then we can take a run at it. We can
Mm-hmm.
stop giving over to it and letting it be our bully. How do you, when you encounter that with women, because I know you have to, there are so many of us,
Mm-hmm.
but I will admit that I still, to this day, have it on occasion. And I used to feel some kind of way about that until I read that Meryl Streep still has it. And then I thought, well,
Mm-hmm.
if Meryl Streep can have it, I'm not going to be hard on myself. But when you
Right.
encounter this with women, what are
Mm.
one or two of the actionable steps you take or that you give to them to take to not collapse under the weight of it.
Yes. Well, what I do on a daily basis is two things. In addition to planning my day, I list three things that I'm grateful for in life and three things that I love about myself. And those two things combined put me in a state of mind that I can move out of the negative feelings of fraud. I found that when I am grateful, it's very hard to be filled with negative emotion. And when I look at what I love myself about, then I start to appreciate it. When I'm working with women, in addition to that, I also have them go through an exercise to look at all their accomplishments in life. Because I think what we do as women is we downplay our accomplishments and focus more on our weaknesses. And that
Oh,
can lead us to
yes.
feeling down.
Yes, it's so true. We are so hard on ourselves and each other.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that um, another thing that I think is critical is building a support system. I was a professional woman and a single mother, and I spent all of my time working or taking care of my children, and I didn't build a support system. So I had no one to talk to or no one to kind of compare notes with to say they felt like that too. So I felt like I was the only one who ever went through this. And I wish I had really taken the time to build that support system so that I could have something lasting.
Women are notoriously dismissive of themselves in so many ways. And one of the key ways that we are dismissive of ourselves and don't even categorize it as that, but that's what it is not giving ourselves those support networks.
Yes.
Not giving ourselves those support networks. And it is crucial, particularly now, possibly more so than it has ever been. In encouraging women to create that support network, do you have tricks or tips to help them overcome the hurdle of hesitancy?
Well, I think one big barrier that women have is they always say, I don't have enough time.
That's right.
And usually when people say I don't have enough time, it means they don't perceive it as important enough to prioritize.
Yes.
And I think if they can understand that so many women have been on this journey and not had a support system and see the value in it, that maybe they can reprioritize the things in their life to put some time into that. Because I think it is an investment and it does take work and it does take attention. But another thing is once you get to the place where you feel like it's personally necessary for you to have a support system, it's almost like you need to get in enough pain with not having one that you realize you need to take the action to build one. Then I am very intentional about reaching out to women. Whether it's I ask women to on LinkedIn to have a coffee chat to network, whether it's I seek out, if I, for example, one of the things I decided to do in my networking was practice intentional diversity. Because most of the professional women that I hung around with were all white. And so I called the Latin American Chamber of Commerce and asked them who they suggested as a professional woman to network with. I called the African American Chamber of Commerce. And then every time I met with a woman, I asked her for the names of three women that she would recommend I network with. And what I learned was when a woman recommends them, they recommend their cream of the crop. They
Absolutely.
recommend the people that they really think the highest of. And when you do that, your network geometrically grows.
Mhm.
What you have to be careful of is not just building a network for numbers' sake. You have to decide who you want to cultivate a deeper relationship with
Be-
and work on it.
Because that is women's strength. We
Yes.
have a higher equity quotient. We are natural bonders. We are nurturers. And these are things that have been used against us by the patriarchy.
Mhm.
And so we stopped seeing them as our strengths. And
Yes.
thanks to women like yourself and other women who are out there uplifting other women, helping them to rediscover their strength, many are realizing that these are strengths. These are not handicaps. So kudos to you, Beverly. Kudos to you for being out there and helping women realize this.
Well, thank you. And I grew up professionally in a corporate environment where women didn't support other women. Now, this is a long time ago, and women were fiercely competitive
Yes.
and, in many cases, nasty to each other. So
Yes.
that's the picture I had of women.
Mhm.
And what I found was when I moved out of the corporate world to an entrepreneurial world, I found much more support there
Mhm.
among women that I did corporately.
Yes, absolutely. I want to stay on this just for an extra minute or two, this situation, let's call it, of women not reaching out to other women, because
Yes.
I'm always speaking to my listeners about this, about the absolute imperative nature of it. You were talking about the time factor. Do you see, because I witness this regularly, actually, when some woman is saying she doesn't have time, it is almost always a woman within whom I can see a hole in her self-confidence, a hole in
Hmm.
her self-belief. And so what she's not having time for is the time for herself.
Hmm.
And how do you help women address that?
Well, I think you have to get to the root of the whole, as you say.
Mhm,
I think, for example, I reach out frequently to women on LinkedIn and ask for a coffee chat
mhm,
and to network. And you'd be surprised at the number of women that won't respond.
mhm.
Maybe they're suspicious at your motives, maybe they think they're too busy. Um, but a lot of times I think women can view it negatively
Mhm.
in terms of what is it you want from me.
Exactly.
I think the other things you can do it in terms of helping them see the need to reach out is to talk to them about what would have been easier in their life if they had someone to talk to, someone to support them, someone who had been through it before. Now, I accomplish this through coaching in a one-on-one setting with women, but
Mhm,
there's also ways you can reach out, and there's many women's groups.
mhm,
And what I found is going to visit them
mhm.
before joining is very helpful, because some groups are more women looking to get something, and other groups are women more likely to give something. And I
Yes.
think you have to reach the right balance of giving and taking. Um, but I don't think as women, we trust other women. And I think this can be a foundation of holding somebody back from networking as well.
Yeah. We're taught not to. We're taught to be suspicious of each other from the
Yep.
time we enter the public school system, or even the
Yep.
private school system, sometimes more the private schools. I just want to say, I think that's absolutely brilliant. The approach of what would have been easier.
Mhm.
I've not heard that before. That is brilliant. And take that in, listeners. What would have been easier for you if you had had someone to speak with? And as Beverly has said, she's on LinkedIn. You can reach out to her for a coffee date. So where did the idea of, I'm sure it wasn't an idea, I'm sure it was an impulse, a spirit moving you, something in your heart that said, okay, we have to do this. That moment when you knew, oh, I'm going to impact 100,000 women. I am going to help 100,000 women recognize their greatness.
I think I saw some key statistics
Mhm.
that made me think this was an emergency situation. One was the statistic that you quoted, where 4 out of 5 women think they are less than other women.
Yes.
That to me is reeks of we've got an issue. And then
Yes.
the other statistic that I saw was that 50% of women feel more self-doubt than self-love.
Mhm.
And so, having been through this before,
Mhm.
knowing how painful it was,
Mhm.
and knowing how long it took me to get to the other side,
Mhm.
I wanted to give back to other women so that they didn't have to go through it all
Right.
and didn't have to take as long to get
Right.
there as I did.
Right. 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 There is a space where I know you encounter these same women that I do. Um, oh, I just don't like mentoring. I don't like networking. I don't like working with other women.
Mhm.
And all of these are statements of self-value or the absence thereof.
Yes,
And when we get into that absence of self-value, we're afraid to expose ourselves because
exactly.
then all of our worst fears are going to be proven true.
Right.
Do you address that, or do you move on and plant a seed and move on? Or do you continue to communicate with those women and encourage them to take a look? You won't die from it.
I think that there has to be an attitude of willingness
Yes,
and open-mindedness. And
I
I
agree.
think this usually comes from experiencing pain, that they have gone through an experience that uh, that they realize they need help or they need a change. They need to do something different.
Right.
Sometimes for some women it's divorce.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's a job loss or a
Mhm.
job change. For
Mhm.
some it's retirement or moving.
Mhm.
Some it's substance abuse recovery.
Right.
But you I think there has to be a fundamental willingness.
Mhm.
If there's not, there's no amount of help you can give them until they're ready. So I think you
I agree.
share your message, but there's so many women out there that are willing and ready that I need to devote my time to helping those that are willing and ready more so than trying to convince somebody that doesn't want something.
I could not agree more. I get that question a lot, which is why I wanted
Mhm.
to pass it on to you because it there are so many women that do want help. Some of them don't know that they want help. Some of them don't know
Right.
how to verbalize it. Some of them don't trust themselves to find the right way to it. So why work on the ones that don't want to enhance their lives? Because it's not
Right.
about helping or not helping, it's their lives. So I agree wholeheartedly. What is your most fulfilling activity or experience or type of exchange you have within the context of this fabulous her expression that you have developed, this company and this network?
I think it's the one-on-one conversations that I have with women
Mm-hmm.
where I can ask them questions like, what does empowerment mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
What help do you wish you had had? Whether it's an informal coffee chat,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's an interview I'm doing for someone to be on my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that the energy when I connect
Mm-hmm.
with that other woman is amazing. Now, you're not going to click with everybody,
No.
but I have found, and that's why some people have said to me with my podcast, oh, don't waste your time on doing an interview, just go straight to the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that connection, that exchange of energy is what I want to bring to
Mm-hmm.
the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that by helping other people,
Mm-hmm.
I get much more out of it than they do. I
Absolutely.
feel energized. I feel more full. I
Mm-hmm.
feel more knowledgeable.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish that for everybody because it's almost like a feeling of I'm filled up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What I believe I hear you saying is that your commitment to bringing value to your listeners is so high that doing that pre-interview is essential so that you can know what you're bringing to your audience, what you're bringing to your network.
Yeah, I found in one interview, a woman told me, she said she thinks empowerment is a bad thing. Well, that's not something I want to convey to
Mm-hmm.
my audience. She
Mm-hmm.
felt like empowerment harmed marriages by men feeling usurped. And I see it as just the opposite. When a woman becomes authentic
Mm-hmm.
and becomes into her own, she can give more than the relationship.
Yes, I have
Yeah,
run into those situations of such powerful internalized misogyny that I know that this is not a person who's going to speak to the listeners in an uplifting way.
exactly.
Yes, and that's the point. We've conversed, so I know neither of us are in it just to be the famous podcaster on the block. We're in it
Exactly.
to bring some benefit to womankind.
Mhm.
And on that note, if you could say anything, and you can, because I'm going to invite you to this opportunity, if you would like to say anything at all to our listening audience, anything at all, what would you say to them today?
I would say believe in yourself and believe in yourself no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Believe in yourself no matter what are the old tapes you heard in your family
Mm-hmm.
about being less than or not good enough
Mm-hmm.
or ignored.
Mm-hmm.
Believe in yourself and think about all the good things you bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't believe in yourself, imagine what a woman who believes in herself looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to imitate that woman. I
Mm-hmm.
want you to imitate every day until the combination of that and looking every day at the beautiful things you have to offer and love about yourself
Mm-hmm.
until they actually make the change come true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And as those of you who've been with me for a while know, because we've talked about this many times, that's just good, solid brain science.
Mhm.
It just changes the neurology and brings you into a place of alignment with that greatness that is inside of you instead of the voices that have been force fed
Exactly.
when we were kids. Going forward, what is your big focus and your big dream to bring to yourself, to your community, to your company in 2023? Because while it's hard to believe, we are on the threshold of 2023 already.
I think you mentioned it earlier. I want to carry this message to 100,000 women.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to impact their thinking
Mm-hmm.
and their feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I want them to realize that there is help and support out there for them, that they don't have to go on this journey alone, that
Mm-hmm.
they don't have to feel like they're the only ones that have felt the discomfort, that
Mm-hmm.
there is help out there.
That's great. And I know you have a lot of focus on self-empowerment by developing stronger self-expression.
Yes.
What does that look like for our listeners? What does it look like to move into a space of stronger self-expression?
Well, first of all, I think a big part of it means being authentic,
Mm-hmm.
to get to the place where you're confident enough to be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I think it becomes a way of nurturing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Expression can be work you do on the inside
Mm-hmm.
and work you do on the outside. It can be learning how to journal.
Mm-hmm.
It can be learning how to paint.
Mm-hmm.
It can be learning to dress for your body type and for your energy.
Mm-hmm.
It can be learning how to speak to a group.
Mm-hmm.
It can be working on your communication skills one on one.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really putting out into the world your authentic self
Mm-hmm.
and experimenting with the ways that make you feel good.
Right. I love the fact that you put experimenting with at the end of that, because be your authentic self has become such a catchphrase.
Yes.
Some days it's just annoying because be your authentic self, but what is that? And how do people get there? And I truly appreciate that you give women a way to understand, at least there's a path set now. Now it's not just this random kitschy phrase.
Right. I think if you trace back to the fact that women feel less than and want to put on this different front,
Right.
that I think it becomes the merger of matching the front to who you are. So in certain cases, that means growing the who you are. And in certain cases, it means adapting who you are on the outside to
Mm,
come together to be the strongest you can be.
I love that. So it's aligning the inside and the outside at a whole
Exactly.
new level to a whole new degree.
Right. For years, people thought I was totally put together, that I knew everything, that I was confident, that I was a little aloof. And that couldn't have been further from the truth of what I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I always would take those painful insides and compare it to every woman's outsides.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else was doing the same thing, putting on this
That's right.
front. And so I always came up short. So I would, every time I compare myself, I'm always going to come up short.
And that's another thing women are taught to do from the moment on. Let's stick on this just for a minute. I know we're running close on time, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mhm.
Oh, Leslie, you're so strong. You're so this, you're so that. And inside I'm thinking, if you only knew. If
Exactly.
you only knew. And I have come to suspect, based on observation, based on seeing interviews with people like Meryl Streep and Sheryl Sandberg talking about how they just want to crawl in a box some days,
Yeah.
that this is true for a majority, not all, but a majority of women who appear strong. and who appear to have it all together. There must be a strength or nobody would see it. But that space of bringing the wounded part into connection with the external strength that people are seeing, that's quite the journey. What would be your best actionable tip for starting that specific journey?
Wow, that's the $100,000 question.
It is.
Um,
And I knew that you would have something to offer.
I think finding someone that you feel safe with to take a chance to express to them the inside,
Yes.
that humility that you need to share deep down, to tell you that I went through a period in my business where the negative self talk and the messages from my childhood were so loud that I was paralyzed and I couldn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that went on for days to
Yes.
let you know that I'm vulnerable,
Yes.
but do it in a safe place.
Yes.
Don't do it with someone you don't trust. Do it with someone you feel that safety and connection with, who
Mm-hmm.
you think will also share back with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's some people that always want to find out everything with you. Have you ever been with one of those people that ask you questions, but they never shared about themselves? You want to stay away from those people.
That's right. Those people, they're exhausting.
Yeah.
Really, they are. There's an energy of there's a energy of being a vampire and just taking,
Yeah.
taking.
I
Yeah,
saw that in an article recently. Yeah, they called it a vampire sucking the life out of you.
that's right. That's right. And I think it's also important that to give yourself an opportunity for women to give themselves an opportunity to miscalculate. Oh, I thought this was a safe person, but they're not. Now, at that moment, don't go back into your darkest shell. Maybe pull back, nurture yourself, nurture your wounds, but then get back out there.
It's a learning experience. Yes.
Yes, because if we haven't been out there, putting ourselves out there, we don't know how. And so we don't know how to ascertain, is this a safe person or does it just feel that way on the surface?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You want somebody that can be real down deep, not just
Yes,
on the surface.
exactly true. Exactly true. Beverly, we're running out of time. I know our listeners are thinking, oh, no, wait. She has more to say that I want to hear. We'll be visiting with all of you again in multiple different ways. I know this is true. But thank you for coming today. Now, I'm going to do for y'all what I always do for you. You know I do this. I'm going to put every one of Beverly's links, her contact information, anything she'll let me post, I'm going to post it with the program notes. So all you have to do is go there, and then you'll be able to get in touch with this wonderful woman directly, be able to have coffee or communication with her directly. Just go to the program notes. While you're there, like and subscribe and pause for one moment. What woman or two do you know who would benefit from hearing what Beverly was sharing today? Be a sister, be a friend, share this forward with her. It's not always the big things that we do that are going to help us come together and claim our collective power. It's these little tiny things. Hitting share and sending a video to a friend and saying, I just saw this woman, Beverly Price. I really think she's going to speak to you. So just take a pause and send
Could
it.
I add something, Leslie?
I wish you would just jump right in here.
If you're wondering where you are on your journey, if you're wondering how well you know yourself, I've created a quiz that's on my website that you can take so you can assess where you are right now in your journey. So just go to my website, herselfexpression.com, and click on Take the Quiz. And that will give you a feeling of where you are. And then you can decide where you want to go to.
Oh, I like that. I'll have to go there and do that just for fun. I like that a lot. So, women, go take the quiz. What the heck? Learn a little tiny thing about yourself. And thank you for tuning in again. Thank you again, Beverly, for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
As you go through your day, remember, you truly are stronger and wiser than you know.